Hey everyone! So today we're going to tackle a question that I had from 2 Samuel chapter 23, and it's a famous passage where three men of David's misfit army of 30 people hear that David has a desire to drink from a well that is currently guarded by a Philistine army. And these three men, they voluntarily embark on the mission to get David that water, and then when they return to David with it, David pours it out on the ground for God. And as I read this passage, I saw that there were clues to hint as to why this was significant, but I also felt really confused because to me it seemed like David just wasted the water that these men so fearlessly labored to retrieve. And so we're going to dig into why David poured out that water and just a few of the many implications from that really symbolism rich passage. It's all there in the passage. You just have to think like a Jewish person who loves God, which David was. So let's dig into the passage. It's 2 Samuel chapter 23, verses 13 through 17. So I'll read it for you. And 3 of the 30 chief men went down and came about harvest time to David at the cave of Adullam, where a band of Philistines was encamped in the valley of Rephaim. You don't have to remember what those places are. David was then in the stronghold, or in the cave, and the garrison of the Philistines was then at Bethlehem. And David said longingly, "Oh, that someone would give me water to drink from the well of Bethlehem that is by the gate." Then the 3 mighty men broke through the camp of the Philistines and drew water out of the well of Bethlehem that was by the gate and carried it and brought it to David. But he would not drink of it. He poured it out to the Lord and said, "Far be it from me, O Lord, that I should do this. Shall I drink the blood of the men who went at the risk of their lives?" Therefore he would not drink it. These things the 3 mighty men did. Okay, so let's unpack this. The story, it comes from a season of David's life where he had been anointed king of Israel but hadn't yet become king of Israel. Instead, Saul, the current king, is on a power-hungry pursuit to kill David. And so David is hiding in a cave, the cave of Adullam, from Saul's army with 30 men who had, in some shape or form, been oppressed by Saul's kingdom. And I call this David's misfit army, the army of the broken, really. And so those who flocked to David, they didn't flock to him because of any majesty or any power or any riches that he currently had, or any power or riches that he would be able to extend to anyone. Yes, David's been anointed king, but that was a private affair. And so I'm not sure if these men, if they know that David's the future king of Israel, but even if they do, he's not currently in a position to extend any blessing to them. And from his current circumstances of hiding in a cave from an army that's pursuing him, it seems unlikely that he's ever going to be able to. But David has these qualities at this point that attract that army and us as readers to him. David displays deep wisdom. He displays mercy, humility, bravery, stealth, and a really high, just extreme strength and valiance, which arise from Yahweh, God. And so these men, they hear David express a longing, not a command, just a longing, while he's in the cave for a drink of water from the well in Bethlehem, which is currently guarded by the Philistines. Now, some believe that this well, placed in the iconic place of Bethlehem, is the prophesied birthplace of the Messiah, was an expressed thirst on David's part for the Messiah. But that's not necessarily something for us to know for our purposes. If the Spirit puts that on your heart, sweet. But we just need to see that there is a deep adoration that these 3 men have for David, who can promise them no reward, but it compels them to risk their lives and go into the Philistine garrison to retrieve David the drink of water that he was thirsting after. And so I think that this is amazing, because when we respect someone's authority over us, we might obey a set of orders that they give us. But when we love someone deeply, simply just because of who they are to us, we long for them to just be pleased, to be filled with joy, to be satisfied. And we long to be the vehicles of that blessing, just to serve them and honor them. And this is the heart that David's men have for David. Just a deep love for him, that they freely offer up their lives just to simply get him a drink of water from a specific well. But then when they return with the water for David, David spills it out on the ground. And why? Well, it says he poured it out to the Lord and said, "Far be it from me, O Lord, that I should do this. Shall I drink the blood of the men who went at the risk of their lives?" Therefore, he would not drink it. So David calls the water blood. He equates it with blood. And here we're digging into the Jewish lingo. In Jewish culture, the life of someone was in their blood. And so when God welcomed his people to eat meat, his one rule was that they could not drink the blood. The blood had to be poured out on the ground because the life of an animal or of a person belonged to God. So the blood belonged to God. He was the giver and the taker of life, and it's not ours for us to take the life of another. So David, therefore, in pouring out the water, he's not wasting their sacrifice. Instead, he's elevating it in honor. He's recognizing the cost with which these men were willing to pay for David. He's recognizing that cost, that these men were willing to give up their lives for his sake. So David humbles himself and acts in a way that expresses the height, the weight of their sacrifice. Basically saying, who am I to be worthy of this high sacrifice? The value of the lives of these men is too great to be given up just for me. The only one who's actually worthy to receive this kind of a sacrifice, the sacrifice of a man's life, which is absolutely precious, is God. And so I might be anointed king of Israel, but even then, I'm just a man. I'm under the reign of the one true king, God. So David, like I said, he elevates their sacrifice, saying it was too high of a gift for him to be worthy to receive. The only one who's worthy enough is God. And so he pours out the water likened to their blood, their life, and he gives it up for God. So what amazes me is this contagious effect that this sacrifice has. When we see someone sacrifice themselves to bless another, it, at least for me, it compels me to want to do something like that as well. And so David, he sees this great sacrifice, and then it translates to him to sacrifice his thirst, his desire to honor God and to honor those men. And so his desire for self-satisfaction after seeing this self-denial creates in him a shift toward self-denial. And so if you're a Christian, you believe that Jesus basically did what these three men did. He came and he went into enemy territory, our territory, and he didn't just risk his life, but he gave it up freely out of love somehow for us. And he quite literally allowed his blood to be poured out so that we could receive the thirst-quenching water of life in him. And so the sacrifice of his life, because he loved us so much, offers to us a new life with abundant joy and peace and freedom. Everything that our heart desires, that those aches, those thirst quenched. And I believe that if we truly look at who Jesus is and what he did for us on the cross, that has the power to melt our hearts in the way that David's heart was melted, though infinitely more so. It has the power to create a dramatic and a beautiful shift from a desire to serve ourselves to a desire to serve God by serving others with unimaginable joy and thanksgiving and self-denial. So if you're a Christian, especially with Easter coming up, I urge you, look at who Jesus is. Look at the cross and let it melt you into wanting to bless others. So thank you guys so much, and I hope you have an awesome week.